The desert wind was dry and sharp, carrying the scent of dust and war. The human scout named Rylan moved carefully between the red rocks, scanning the horizon with a trained eye. His boots sank lightly into the soft sand as he crouched beside a ridge, lifting his binoculars to check the alien camp ahead. Smoke rose from the tents shaped like sharp cones, and the alien symbols etched into the canvas flapped wildly with the wind. He knew he shouldn't be this close to their territory, but Command wanted eyes on the tribe's movements. Raylan had heard the stories about the Black Claw clan. They weren't like the other alien species Earth had negotiated with. These ones were fierce, wild, and followed their own ancient laws. Most of their warriors were female, tall, muscular, and covered in fur armor made from native beasts. He didn't expect diplomacy. He expected a spear through the chest if he got caught. But Command insisted this region might hold the rare minerals Earth needed. His job was to confirm and report, then leave quietly. He didn't expect the ambush. A sharp growl hit his ear just seconds before black claws wrapped around his arms and yanked him back. He dropped the binoculars and reached for his sidearm. But the blow came fast. A thump to his neck made the world spin. As he dropped, he glimpsed a pale gray face, glowing eyes, and a wild mane of black hair. Then everything went dark. When Rylan opened his eyes again, he was tied to a wooden post in the middle of the alien camp. Torches flickered around him, and drumming echoed across the canyon walls. The scent of smoke and meat hung heavy in the air. Dozens of tall fur-clad alien women surrounded him. They growled and whispered, baring their teeth like wolves studying prey. But one stepped forward taller than the rest, wrapped in thick bear fur, her black cat ears twitching as she studied him with amusement. She didn't speak at first. She just smiled wide and sharp, showing fangs that looked too perfect to be real. Then she leaned close, her clawed hand brushing against the crest on his shoulder armor. "You wear this symbol, but you are weak," she said in perfect English. Her voice was deep and smooth, like the growl of a jungle cat. Raylan stayed quiet, his training reminding him not to show fear. But she saw it in his eyes and laughed. Then, to his confusion, she tore the crest patch from his armor and replaced it with a different one. Her own clan's symbol, 3 claw marks through a star, was pressed against his chest. The women around her cheered and stomped the ground. She raised her hand and declared something in their language, then turned to Rylan again. "Now you wear my crest," she said with a grin. "That makes you mine." Rylan thought it was a joke, maybe some ritual or a power game. But she wasn't joking. Her name was Kira, and she was the daughter of the war chief. She told the tribe he was her chosen one, acclaimed mate. The others looked confused, but no one challenged her. She made him sit beside her that night, fed him food from her hands, and wrapped a heavy fur cloak over his shoulders every time. He tried to explain. She growled and silenced him. "You are mine now. You do not talk of escape." When he tried to move away, 2 guards pinned him down. Kyra didn't like disobedience. Her rules were simple. He stayed by her side, wore her crest, and obeyed. Raylan had no idea how serious this was becoming. The next morning, he saw his old crest being burned in the fire pit. That patch was more than cloth. It was his military identity. Without it, Earth might assume him dead or compromised. His cum device had been taken, his weapons removed, and now he was treated like some tribal consort. Kira never left his side, and the others began calling him Bonded One. She took him on a tour of the camp, proudly showing him her warriors. Their battle drums, their weapon racks, and the animal skins hang in honor of past hunts. She spoke to him as if they were equals, no, as if they were fated. "Our ancestors sent you," she said. "Your eyes shine like the storm god. You are not like the others. You are mine to protect, and mine to use." Rylan wanted to run. Every instinct told him to escape, get back to the ridge, and call for pickup. But deep down, something strange stirred. This alien woman who claimed him wasn't just dominant. She was alive in a way no one back home ever was. She danced when she spoke, laughed when she roared, and looked at him like he was a rare treasure. It was terrifying and strangely thrilling. That night, as the fire crackled and the warriors drank some kind of fermented root drink, Kira sat beside him again. She rested her head against his shoulder and curled her thick tail around his waist. "Your skin is soft, but your heart is strong," she whispered. "You will give me strong children. We will carve our mark into the stars together." Rylan stared at the sky above. The stars looked different here. Bigger, closer, but none of them held answers. He had been sent to spy on these people. Now he was wearing their crest. Marked as one of them. Claimed as something more than just a prisoner. As Kira purred beside him and the drums grew louder, he realized something had changed inside him, and he didn't know if it could be undone. Raylan woke to the sound of heavy drums and the sharp scent of something burning. The sun had just begun to rise over the red canyon walls, casting long shadows across the alien camp. He shifted under the weight of the thick fur blanket draped across him. Beside him, Kira stretched like a cat waking from deep sleep, her black fur cloak brushing against his arm as she stood. The fire in the center of the camp blazed high, and the alien warriors had already begun their morning rituals. Some painted symbols on their faces, while others sharpened curved blades with quiet focus. Kira stood tall among them, her presence commanding. She motioned for Raylan to follow her. When he hesitated, she snapped her fingers and barked an order to the guards. They didn't need to drag him, he got the message. She led him to a wide ring of sand near the center of the village. There, in front of dozens of warriors, she tossed a weapon at his feet. It was a staff made of alien bone, decorated with feathers and bloodstains. "Today you prove you are strong enough to wear my crest," she said. "You fight or you crawl. Your choice." The warriors began to circle around them, chanting in a strange rhythm. Rylan bent down and picked up the staff. It felt light but solid, balanced like a spear with no point. His heart pounded as his eyes met Kira's. She was not joking. He would have to fight one of them, maybe more. Another figure stepped into the ring, a tall warrior woman with red streaks in her dark hair. She grinned and cracked her knuckles as the crowd cheered. The warrior charged without warning. Rylan barely dodged her first swing, ducking and rolling to the side. He remembered his training timing, stance, control. He swung the staff upward, catching her arm and spinning away. She laughed and came back harder, her strikes faster now. Raylan blocked 1-2, then landed a strike to her shoulder that made her grunt. They circled each other, sweat shining on their skin in the rising heat. Raylan felt pain in his arms, his legs, his back, but he stayed on his feet. Finally, he feinted left and jabbed forward, knocking the warrior off balance. She fell to one knee, and the crowd roared. Rylan stepped back, chest heaving. He hadn't killed her, and that seemed to matter. Kira stepped into the ring, her eyes gleaming with approval. She raised his arm high and shouted in her language. The warriors cheered, banging their fists against their chests. Raylan didn't understand the words, but he knew what had happened. He had earned something, not freedom, but maybe respect. Kira handed him a carved wooden pendant and tied it around his neck. It bore her crest, the same one now burned into his fate. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Rylan was no longer guarded as tightly. Some of the warriors nodded at him, and a few even offered him meat or drink. He didn't trust them yet, but they didn't treat him like a prisoner anymore. Kira watched him the entire time. When night came, she spoke softly into his ear. "You are stronger than I thought. You have not broken. You are ready." She led him to a smaller tent near hers, a private place with soft furs and flickering oil lamps. Inside, she sat beside him and gently touched the crest on his chest. "When one wears the mark of another, it is not just for show. You wear my life, my bond. That makes us something more." You belong to me, and I belong to you. In this world that cannot be undone, Rylan felt a storm inside him. Part of him still wanted to escape, to return to his people. But another part, one he couldn't explain, felt drawn to her. Not just her beauty or strength, but the way she moved, the way she believed in him. No one back home looked at him like she did. No one risked reputation or honor for him like she had. She rested her head on his shoulder and wrapped her arms around his waist. Do not fear what you are becoming, she whispered. The stars guide you to me. The gods do not make mistakes. Rylan closed his eyes, unsure of what was right or wrong anymore. But he didn't push her away. In the morning, a strange tension swept through the camp. Messengers rushed in from the canyon paths, whispering in the ears of guards. Horns blew once, then twice. The warriors began arming themselves, grabbing weapons and armor. Kyra's eyes darkened as she pulled on her battle gear. Another tribe is near, she said. They want blood. Rylan stood, unsure if he should follow. Kyra turned to him and pointed firmly. You fight beside me now. Not behind, beside. You wear my crest. If you fall, I fall. If you run, I lose honor. Are you ready? Rylan didn't know how to answer. But he picked up the bone staff again, gripped it tight, and nodded colon asterisk. The sky turned orange as the twin suns dropped behind the canyon cliffs. The warriors of the Black Claw clan stood in rows, silent and ready. Each held weapons carved from bone, stone, or salvaged metal. War paint covered their faces. Kyra stood at the front, her eyes scanning the horizon, one hand resting on the hilt of her blade. Rylan stood next to her, the weight of the staff heavy in his grip. He could feel the stares from the others. Some were doubtful. Others were curious. No one spoke to him now. This was not training or ritual. This was war. Kyra had made it clear if he backed down, he would shame her. If he fell, she would be blamed. The bond wasn't just symbolic. In their eyes, she had staked her future on him. The enemy came into view just as the first stars appeared. They wore dark cloaks and moved like shadows through the canyon. The rival clan, known as the Dunefangs, had long hated the Black Claws. Tonight, the hatred burned hotter than ever. Drums beat louder. The warriors of both sides screamed their war cries. Kyra didn't wait. She raised her blade and charged. Rylan ran beside her. The sound of footsteps in the sand, the clash of blades, and the scream of warriors filled the air. He swung his staff at the first figure who came at him, knocking the weapon from her hand. Another enemy lunged, but he blocked, twisted, and struck back. His training helped him, but this was different. Brutal, real. He had never fought for his life like this before. Kyra was a blur of black fur and flashing steel. Her claws tore through armor. Her blade danced with deadly grace. She fought like someone with no fear of death. Rylan couldn't match her strength, but he stayed close. When she stumbled, he blocked an attack meant for her back. When he slipped, she pulled him up. The battle tied them together. Screams echoed through the canyon as bodies fell. Fires lit up the night. Rylan lost count of how many he had fought. Blood stained his hands and chest. His muscles screamed, but he refused to fall. This wasn't about survival anymore. It was about standing beside her. About proving her trust wasn't a mistake. When the battle finally ended, the Black Claws stood over the fallen. The Dunefangs had retreated, leaving behind their dead and wounded. The drummers changed their rhythm. Now the beats were slower, proud, victorious. Kyra stood with blood on her face and fire in her eyes. She raised her weapon and roared. The warriors roared with her. Then her gaze locked onto Rylan. She crossed the sand toward him, breath heavy, shoulders cut and bruised. Without a word, she pulled him close, pressing her forehead against his. It was not a kiss. It was something older. Something sacred. The clan fell silent. Kyra growled one word in her language, then another. The warriors repeated it. Rylan didn't understand the meaning, but he understood the moment. Later, around the fire, Kira spoke softly while tending to his wounds. You are no longer a visitor. You are no longer my claimed one. Now you are one of us. You have spilled blood. For this tribe, you have protected me. That is more than most have done. Her fingers brushed the cut on his arm, then paused over his chest where her crest still hung. Raylan looked around the camp. No guards watched him anymore. Warriors nodded at him with respect. He had earned a place here. Maybe not in his own eyes yet, but in theirs. Kira leaned closer. Tomorrow we will go to the sacred rocks. There is something I must show you. Something only bondmates are allowed to see. He wanted to ask what that meant, but her tone told him this wasn't something. She explained in words. That night, sleep did not come easily. His body ached, but his mind raced. He had come here as a scout, a spy. He was supposed to leave after a quick scan. Now he was covered in scars, wearing a crest that had become more than cloth. And beside him, a warrior queen watched over him, like he was treasure. At dawn, Kira took him out of the camp, beyond the ridges where few went. They walked through winding paths marked with ancient symbols. The air was dry and still. No one followed. Only birds circled high above, and the bones of old beasts lay along the sides of the trail. They stopped at a tall rock wall covered in carvings. Kira placed her palm against one and whispered something. A section of the wall shifted. A narrow entrance opened. She motioned for him to follow. Inside, the tunnel was dark, but the walls glowed faintly with blue light. Symbols moved like slow water, ancient and alive. At the end of the tunnel was a chamber. In the center was a glowing pool, its surface still and deep. Kira knelt beside it and looked at her reflection. This is the bond pool, she said. It is where my ancestors swore loyalty, where our fates are tied forever. Only those who are truly chosen may see this, and only those willing to accept the bond may enter its water. She stood and turned to him. Do you trust me now, human? Will you step forward, not as a guest, but as one who shares my life? Rylan looked at the pool. It shimmered with a light that pulsed like a heartbeat. He thought of everything he had seen, everything he had done. She had claimed him, then protected him, then bled beside him. The bond was no longer just hers. It had become his as well. Raylan stood at the edge of the glowing pool, his reflection rippling across the blue surface. Kira waited behind him, watching with calm, steady eyes. The chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of the ancient energy running through the stone. He had never seen anything like this, not in any mission briefing or planetary report. This place was sacred to her people, and now she had brought him to its heart. He removed the fur cloak from his shoulders and stepped forward. The water was warm and felt thicker than normal, like silk moving around his legs. When he reached the center, the light around him brightened. The markings on the walls pulsed slowly, in rhythm with his breath. Kira walked to the edge and placed her hand on a carved symbol shaped like a crescent and 3 stars. Energy rose from the pool like mist, wrapping around his chest. The crest she had given him began to glow. His heart raced, but he didn't move. Then he heard her voice low, deep and full of power. She chanted in her language, each word echoing in the chamber. The glow spread from the crest to his skin, tracing lines across his arms like living tattoos. When the chant ended, the pool became still again. The glow faded, leaving only faint markings that looked burned into his flesh. Rylan stepped out, dripping and breathless. Kira met him with a fur cloth and dried his shoulders. You are bound to me now, she said, not just in word, not just in war, but in spirit. You cannot return to your world unchanged. He looked down at the marks. They didn't hurt, but they felt heavy, like a truth written into his bones. He had seen many strange things during his service in space, but nothing like this. Nothing that touched his soul. Kira touched his cheek and smiled. "You are no longer just my mate. You are one of the Black Claw. You are mine, and I am yours." They walked back to the camp under the rising suns. The morning air was cool, and the scent of fresh meat cooking drifted on the wind. Warriors greeted them with respectful nods. Some bowed slightly. Rylan noticed the change. They no longer looked at him with doubt. They saw him as part of the tribe now. Kira's hand never left his arm. As they sat near the central fire, one of the elder warriors approached. She was tall, scarred, and walked with a limp. Her name was Yurik, and she had fought in more battles than anyone alive. She looked at Raylan and grunted. "He carries the mark now," she said. "Let him earn it fully. The next hunt begins soon," Kira agreed. "He will fight beside me. Let the beasts test his strength." Raylan had heard about the desert hunt. It wasn't like the skirmishes with rival clans. This was a test of skill, survival, and instinct. The beasts that roamed beyond the cliffs were massive and deadly. Only bonded pairs hunted them. Failure meant death for both. That night, Raylan sharpened a bone spear while Kira prepared their packs. "The hunt will show them you are not just lucky," she said. "It will prove your soul belongs here." He didn't answer. He was still thinking about the pool, the marks, and the strange calm he felt inside. Fear still lived in him, but something else had taken root as well. At dawn, they left with 4 other bonded pairs. The sun beat down hard, and the wind carried dry heat across the rocky landscape. Raylan moved carefully, watching Kira for every signal. She walked like a shadow, silent and swift. They passed through narrow canyons, over broken stone bridges, and into the hunting grounds marked by bone totems. Hours passed before they found signs of the beast. Deep tracks in the sand, bones split with sharp teeth, claw marks on stone. Kira crouched near a ledge and pointed. Below, a hulking creature moved through the shadows. It had 6 legs, armored skin, and 2 tusks that curved like horns. Its eyes glowed faintly red in the shade. They moved in silence, circling to higher ground. Rylan knew this was where it counted. Not in ritual, not in combat against people. This was about life and death, about protecting her, about trusting each other in the wild. He gripped his spear and nodded. Kira gave a sharp whistle, and the beast turned its head. The creature roared and charged. Raylan jumped to the side as Kira leaped from a rock above, slashing her curved blade down its back. The beast bucked wildly, sending her flying. Rylan didn't hesitate. He ran forward, yelling to distract it. It turned toward him, jaws snapping. He ducked, rolled, and thrust his spear between its ribs. The spear bent, cracked, but held. Kira landed behind the beast, her blade flashing again. Together they fought, moving in rhythm, covering each other's blind spots. The fight lasted minutes that felt like hours. Finally, the beast collapsed, its body shaking, then going still. Raylan stood panting, blood dripping from his arm. Kira limped over, a long cut on her thigh. They looked at each other and laughed. They returned to the camp carrying one of the beast's massive tusks. The warriors roared in approval. Yurik smiled and nodded. "Now the mark means something," she said. "You have earned your bond in the old way." Rylan felt the weight of the moment. He had faced a monster, bled for his place, and stood beside Kira like a true warrior. That night, as the tribe celebrated, Kira pulled him aside. "You no longer need to prove anything," she said. "You are no longer the outsider. From this moment, you are one of us, my equal, my chosen, my mate in body, spirit, and fire." The desert wind howled again that night, but the fire in the center of the camp burned strong. Raylan sat beside Kira, his body sore but alive. His arm was wrapped in cloth, and red dust clung to his skin. The warriors danced and sang around, the fire lifting tusks and horns to the sky. He had never seen a celebration so wild and yet so proud. It wasn't just a victory for the hunt. It was a welcome into something greater. Kira leaned against him, her hand resting over his. "This is our life," she said. "Hunt, protect, honor. No high towers, no weak words. Only what you give with your blood matters here." Her cat ears twitched with the drums. Her golden eyes glowed in the light. He looked at her and saw not just a warrior, but a woman who had chosen him for something deeper than a ritual. She reached up and touched the marks on his chest. They were still faintly glowing. The last of the bond's energy settled into his skin. "Do you feel it now?" she asked. "The rhythm of the tribe, the bond between us? You are not pretending anymore. You are mine. Truly mine." Raylan nodded, not just to please her, but because a part of him had changed. He had come to this world on a mission. He had worn Earth's uniform, followed Earth's orders. But those symbols were gone now, burned, replaced. Kira had claimed him, and now he understood what that meant. It was not about control, it was about faith. She had risked everything to pull him into her world. And now he stood in it as her equal. The next day, the Elder Council called them to the stone circle. It was rare for outsiders to stand within those ancient slabs, older than the stars themselves. Kira held his hand as they walked into the ring. Around them stood the clan's wisest warriors, their eyes sharp and questioning. Urek stepped forward and raised her staff. "This male came as a scout, a spy, but now he stands as one of our own," she said. "He has fought, he has bled, he has bonded. But there remains one final test. He must walk the path of fire, alone. Only then will the bond be complete in the eyes of the ancestors." Rylan looked at Kira. She squeezed his hand. "I cannot follow you there," she said. "Not even I. You must walk it without blade, without armor, without me. It is the way." Raylan nodded slowly. He didn't know what the path held, but he understood the meaning. This wasn't about battle, it was about spirit. About proving who he was when no one was watching. At dusk, he was led to the edge of a deep canyon. A narrow path wound down between burning rocks. Lava flowed below like red veins through the stone. The heat pressed against his face. He wore nothing but a simple cloth, his crest still tied around his neck. The warrior beside him handed him a flask of water and stepped back. "Walk, return, or do not." Rylan descended the path. The heat grew worse with every step. His feet burned, his lungs ached. The canyon walls glowed with ancient symbols. Voices seemed to echo from the stone, though no one else was there. He stumbled, caught himself, and kept going. Time passed like smoke, uncountable and thick. All that mattered was the next step. He came to a stone bridge hanging over a pit of fire. In the center stood a figure. It looked like him, but not quite. Its eyes were darker, its face harder. It raised a weapon and charged. Raylan had nothing to fight with. He ducked, rolled, and grabbed a loose stone. The figure struck. Raylan blocked with his arm and shoved the stone into its chest. The figure vanished in smoke. Raylan crossed the bridge. His chest heaved, his skin blistered, but he did not stop. At the far side, he found a pool of cool water surrounded by glowing plants. He knelt, drank, and looked into the water. This time, the reflection did not ripple. It held his face, his scars, his crest, and a mark on his forehead he hadn't noticed before. He had earned it, alone, without Kira, without the tribe. When he climbed out of the canyon and returned to the stone circle, the warriors stood in silence. Then one by one, they beat their chests and howled. Kira ran to him and wrapped her arms around him. "You have passed," she said. "You are no longer just mine. You are of the fire. The ancestors accept you." That night, the crest she had given him was reforged. dipped in molten silver and etched with the fire mark. She placed it on him again, this time not as a gift, not as a claim, but as a truth. "You have burned away the past," she said. "Now you rise in my world, not beneath me. Beside me, you are my fire-bonded, my mate in all things. No force can take that from us." Rylan looked at her, the flames dancing in her eyes. Around them, the tribe celebrated louder than ever. But in that moment, he saw only her, not the warrior, not the clan's future leader, just the woman who had pulled him from the edge and made him something new. The sun rose slowly over the canyon, casting golden light across the Black Claw camp. Smoke from the morning fires drifted gently into the sky. Rylan stood near the edge of the ridge, looking out across the land. The wind brushed against his face, carrying the scent of dry stone and firewood. Behind him, the tribe stirred into motion. But this morning felt different. Kira joined him in silence. Her hand touched his, fingers curling around his wrist. She didn't speak right away. They simply watched the land together. After a while, she broke the silence. "You have walked the path. You have stood beside me in battle. The ancestors know your name now. But something still burns behind your eyes." Rylan nodded. "I was sent here by my people. That mission is still unfinished. They don't know I'm alive. They don't know I've changed. One day they'll come looking. And when they do, they may see your clan as a threat." Kyra's expression hardened, but she didn't pull away. She had expected this moment to come. She led him back into her tent and unrolled a map carved into leather. It showed the surrounding territories, the hunting lands, the sacred grounds, and beyond that the hills where the human dropships had landed months ago. "If they come," she said, "we will not hide, we will fight. But if you speak for us, maybe they will not raise their guns so quickly." Rylan understood the weight of her words. She was offering more than peace. She was trusting him to stand between two worlds, one he had left behind, one he now belonged to. He didn't know if Earth Command would listen to him, but he knew one thing: he couldn't let war fall on this tribe. Not after all they had given him. A day later, he walked with Kira and 3 other warriors toward the Signal Hill. It was a place high enough for a long-range beacon to reach orbit. His emergency transmitter had been recovered and restored by the tribe's metalworkers. Rylan held it in his hands, staring at the blinking red light. If he turned it on, Earth would come. If he stayed silent, they might think he was dead forever. Kira placed her hand over his. "No matter what comes, you are not alone." He nodded, then activated the beacon. A soft hum filled the air, and a thin beam of blue light shot upward into the sky. Somewhere far above, a human satellite would receive the message. A rescue signal. But this time, it was more than that. They returned to the camp and waited. The tribe prepared for all outcomes. Weapons were sharpened. Scouts were sent to the edges of the cliffs. Kira gave orders, but she stayed close to Rylan. At night, she spoke softly by the fire. "If your people do not understand what you are, I will protect you. If they try to take you, I will fight them." Rylan didn't doubt her, but he hoped it wouldn't come to that. When the human ship finally appeared in the sky, a silver line cutting through the clouds, the tribe stood still. Drums stopped. Conversations halted. The ship circled once, then landed in a clear space beyond the outer ridge. No weapons were fired. No threats made. Just silence and dust. 3 humans stepped out, all in gray armor. One of them removed his helmet. "Lieutenant Rylan James," he said. "You've been listed as missing for 2 months. Are you alive and under threat?" Rylan stepped forward. "I'm alive. I'm not under threat. These people saved me. They protected me. I ask that you do not harm them." The lead officer frowned. "Your mission was reconnaissance. You've gone native. You wear their symbols. What happened here?" Rylan didn't look away. "I learned what Earth forgot. Honor. Bond. Fire. I didn't just survive. I became something better. The officer glanced at Kira, then back at him. Command will want answers, and a report. Rylan nodded. You'll get one, but not today. Not here. He looked at Kyra, and she stepped forward beside him. She removed her own crest and placed it in the officer's hand. This is our word, she said calmly. We do not want war, but we will not kneel. If you speak peace, we will listen. If you speak threats, we will answer. The officer stared at the crest for a long time. Then he nodded once. Understood. No shots fired. You'll return with US for debrief. Then you can choose your path. Raylan looked at Kyra, who nodded slowly. Go, tell them, but come back. This is your home now. Our bond cannot be broken by ships or orders. Rylan turned back to the ship. His legs felt heavy, but his heart steady. The humans guided him aboard. As the ramp closed behind him, he looked through the glass one last time. Kyra stood at the edge of the ridge, her black fur cloak blowing in the wind. Her eyes never left him. He touched the mark on his chest and closed his hand over it. The human ship flew high above the red canyons, leaving behind the smoke, drums, and glowing fires of the Black Claw tribe. Inside the cabin, Rylan sat in silence, his eyes locked on the small window. He still felt the warmth of Kira's hand on his arm, though she was miles below now. Around him, the other soldiers watched but said nothing. Earth Command's debrief was long and cold. They asked questions, examined his markings, ran tests, and tried to understand what had happened. Some thought he had been brainwashed. Others believed he had been broken. But Rylan answered calmly. He told them everything about the ambush, the bond, the crest, the hunt, and the fire path. They listened, but they did not truly hear. To them, it was just a report. A file to close, a strange story to lock away. They did not see Kyra's fire in his memory. They did not feel the sacred energy that had flowed through him. They could not understand what it meant to be chosen, to belong, to fight not for orders, but for someone who believed in you without question. Weeks passed. They offered him medals. He refused. They offered him reassignment. He declined. Finally, they gave him the only thing he asked for, a shuttle stocked with supplies and flight clearance to return to the planet. His official file was marked complete and placed in storage. As far as command was concerned, Rylan James had fulfilled his duty. The descent back to the surface was rough. Wind slammed against the shuttle as it entered the atmosphere. Dust. Storms swirled below, but he recognized the land like it was burned into his skin. The canyon ridges, the jagged stone paths, the glow of torchlight through the dust. He was home before the landing gear even touched the ground. He stepped out into the night, his boots sinking into familiar sand. No guards waited. No scouts challenged him. Instead, a low drumbeat echoed through the dark, slow and steady like a heartbeat. Then she appeared, Kira standing at the top of the ridge, cloaked in black bear fur, her golden eyes locked on his. He walked toward her, crest on his chest, arms open. She moved quickly, claws clicking softly against the stone. When she reached him, she didn't speak. She placed her forehead against his and let out a slow breath. Around them, warriors emerged from the shadows, watching silently. Then one by one, they bowed. Kira took his hand and led him back to the fire. It was not the same camp as before. It had grown. New tents, new warriors, a new strength in the tribe. They feared you would not return, she said. I told them you would. Our bond is not a thing that fades. You are fire-marked. You are mine. He smiled and sat beside her, his hands tracing the scars on his arms. I told them the truth, about you, about this place. They didn't believe me, but it doesn't matter now. I didn't come back for them. I came back for what matters. Kira leaned close, her tail curling around his waist. You returned. To where you belong. The gods see this. The fire sees this. Days turned into weeks. Raylan became a warrior in full. He trained new fighters, hunted beside the tribe, and walked through the sacred places not as an outsider, but as one of their own. The fire in him grew steady. The weight of the past faded. The crest on his chest became more than a market. Became a promise. One morning, Kira stood before the stone circle and raised her blade. It is time, she said. I no longer lead alone. I stand with the one who walked the fire, who wore the crest, who came from beyond the stars and chose to burn with us. The tribe roared as Raylan stepped beside her, not as a consort, but as co-leader. Together, they shaped the tribe's future. They trained warriors not just to fight, but to protect. They welcomed outcasts. They guided the young. They faced storms and beasts and blood with the same unshaken bond. And when new stars appeared in the sky, they watched without fear. Because no ship, no order, no outsider could ever break what had been forged in fire, Kira and Raylan stood at the edge of the canyon often, watching the winds move through the valley below. They didn't speak much in those moments. They didn't need to. Their bond was deep, ancient, written into flesh and stone. She had once forced him to wear her crest. Now he wore it with pride.